I am a YouTuber. I am a house husband. And yeah, that's a very important
That's trendy
job.
right now.
That is very trendy. That is a privilege. House husband, I highly recommend it. Going home at 8 years old, walking home after school, and then I saw my mom sitting on the stairs crying, and I asked her why is she crying, and she said it's because this morning the banks came to appraise our home. My mother actually passed away suddenly. Yeah, so she died of a heart attack, ironically, on a holiday. Before that holiday, I told her I'm very busy at work. I can't go to the holiday with you. The next day after the funeral, I walked straight into my office and I quit.
Hi Shao, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks Ernestine. I'm excited. I believe I'm your first guest, right?
Yes,
okay,
indeed.
So let's do this.
Yeah, so I wanted to have you on today because you're 38 and you've already achieved financial freedom. And I feel like the way you did it was very accessible and uncomplicated. So I just wanted to, have you on and we could chat more about that today.
Sure.
So can you tell me a bit about your background? What do you do for a living?
So what do I do for a living now? I am actually financially free, so I don't really have a full-time job per se. I don't really have a title that most people have, and I see that as my previous life. So right now, I am a YouTuber. I am a house husband. And yeah, that's a very important job.
That's trendy right now.
That is very trendy. That is a privilege that I highly recommend to all your viewers that if you have the opportunity to be a house husband, I highly recommend it. And I also teach part-time as a lecturer in one of the universities here.
Wow. So for context, we're also in Singapore currently. So can you walk me through your story a bit? Like, how did you achieve financial freedom? And at what age do you feel like you achieved it?
I always knew that financial freedom is something that I value because I grew up actually in a sort of financially unstable family. In the 90s, I don't know if you are aware, in this part of the world, we went through a major financial crisis. It's called the Asian financial crisis. Literally, it was in the 90s, and a lot of people lost a lot of money, and we had to lose our house. And I remember going home at 8 years old, walking home after school, and then I saw my mom sitting on the stairs crying, and I asked her why is she crying, and she said it's because this morning the banks came to appraise our home. So before digital tools were available, they would come down physically and they will bring stickers and they start sticking onto every item to auction them off later off in the case of a bankruptcy. So that whole episode was very, very real to me. And I then became very interested in financial management. How do people actually manage their finances? So I studied really hard and entered into investment banking, or like investment management here, which is a big industry here in Singapore. Even though deep down, I knew that I'd sucked at it. Or it wasn't for me. Like numbers and spreadsheets just wasn't me, and finance was just too cutthroat for me, and it was a mismatch of my personality. Like if you can tell, I tend to like to talk. I like to do storytelling. It's a little bit more closer to like marketing and sales as opposed to finance and analysis. But because the allure of money and the pain of not having money was so great, I had to sort of suppress my own like inner voice saying that, hey, this really isn't for you, and work for finance for 5 years. And it was good. The money was good for 5 years, but it was really stressful, as you may know, in the finance industry. And I really suspect that was when I started to lose all my hair. But 5 years later, I decided, hey, enough is enough. And this is the toughest part, actually. 5 years after working in finance, the very reason that led me to working in finance, which was my mother, actually passed away suddenly. Yeah, so she died of a heart attack, ironically, on a holiday.
Oh, wow.
So I still remember before that holiday, I told her I'm very busy at work. I can't go to the holiday with you, but I would pay for it. So then she was there. She got a heart attack overseas. I then flew over there. The next day she passed away. So It's so ironic. When I think back of life, like I thought money was the most important thing because that's to take care of my mom. But then I chose a path where like money overtakes everything, including my own personal time, that I no longer had time with her. So then like that really shook me. So the next day after the funeral, I walked straight into my office and I quit.
Wow.
I quit. And the company I quit with was JP Morgan, which is like number one.
Right, right.
Like if you make it in JP Morgan, even in the US, I guess if you get a job there, you are set for life.
Yeah.
So I remember my boss's boss, head of HR, they were all calling me and said, are you insane? Are you mad? Why do you want to walk away with this? You're just emotional right now. You're just overreacting. Take some time off and everything. But I knew that at that point, like I worked so hard to make all this money to send my mom on a vacation that I even couldn't make it. And then at that point, when my mom was in the hospital, I was like telling the doctor, how much does this cost? How much does this cost? Like it doesn't cost. It's no longer correlated to money, right? So that then transited me from finance all the way to tech. Because at that time, tech was booming and tech came across as a company, an industry that is more inclusive, more balanced. And that's where I shifted. And eventually I found myself in Google, which is by far the best employer that I ever had.
Wow. Well, first of all, I'm so sorry. I had no idea that happened. Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing. That must have been so difficult because I feel like you wanted to make so much money because of what happened when you were younger during the financial crisis. And then you were motivated by that fear, it seems. And then this happens. Yeah. It must have been really difficult.
Yeah. And if I think about it, like at that time, I felt really unfair. Like, hey, I did everything right. I did everything, but yet this happens. But as time goes by, you realize that like pain is actually a very effective teacher. So I now with retrospectively think back, I would think that like if my mother didn't pass away, my relationship with my career and thus money may not have improved. I may be continuing going down that rat race of working hard, burning the candles on both ends and just thinking that having more money equals more solutions and you could pay your way out of things. So yeah, that's what I got out of it actually.
Yeah. So let's talk about your time at Google. You ended up spending 8 years there.
Yes.
Yeah. What was that time like?
Oh, it was the best time of my career. Best time. They were the best employer. They were the best, some of the best people. My manager is the best. I had my best manager there. They really invested in me. Because of Google, I had two opportunities. One was that I got to work in San Francisco. So
right.
Yeah,
it's my hometown.
Yes, your hometown. Okay, I'm going to tell you a funny story. I was assigned there. It was a rotation. So internally, you call it rotation. So like they rotate you to the San Francisco office. So I was so excited. And then they had this HR would send you like this team to help you relocate. And then they're like, oh, so where do you want to stay in San Francisco? Then coming from Singapore, I was like, oh, downtown would be nice. Because like downtown means like downtown. Yeah. Then I didn't know that downtown means something else in San Francisco or in the US, right?
Yeah, downtown is where you want to avoid if you're in San Francisco.
Yeah, so I spent 3 months in downtown, but coming from super sanitized Singapore to there, you could say that I really, really embraced the local like sights and sounds.
Oh, definitely. I'm sure your horizons expanded.
Yes. And I also then realized that, Singapore has a lot of perks and like the safety. And
you're like, thank God I'm from Singapore.
Thank God I could go back to Singapore. So yeah, Google was so cool. So the cool thing about that was that they gave me the opportunity to work in the US, but they paid for my flights, they paid for my accommodation in San Francisco, which is really expensive, and they held my job in Singapore.
Oh, wow.
So this is, back then they would say like, hey, we really want to invest in you, so we'll put you to another office in another role. If you like it, you get to stay. Wow. If you don't like it, and you prefer and you think that your strengths are actually better off here, you could come back here.
Wow.
Yeah, that was like, wow, like so generous. And the second experience Google gave me was this is embarrassing, but every Singaporean wants to fly business class on Singapore Airlines.
Oh, yes.
It is like the ultimate milestone.
Yeah.
And the day I flew to San Francisco for work, they put me on a flight because it's over a certain hours, you're eligible for business flight. I remember walking in the plane and instead of turning right to economy or coach, I finally turned left.
Yeah.
with the peasants, yes, with the commoners. I'm finally like this noble, like elite class, and I turned left, and that was I still remember that moment. I was like, yes, I made it in life.
Wow.
Yeah, and now thinking back, I was like, oh, this is so childish. Like you value all these things, going. I and then because of the business class, it allows me just to show you where I came from. Like I was always envious of people who flew business class and had lounge access. So the stopover was at LAX to San Francisco. I almost missed my second flight from LAX to SFO because I went to the lounge. I was so fascinated with it. They had an open bar and I was completely wasted there. They had to call my name.
Classic. Yeah.
Until the bartender is like, excuse me, are you Mr. Chen? It's like, yes, your flight is waiting for you. So I rushed there to the flight, and then I lost my ticket.
You lost your ticket?
I lost my ticket. And this is crazy because if you were flying economy, that's it, game over, right? You're done. But because you're flying business, the guy's like, no problem, I'll print you one right away. And then they just did it on the spot.
Wow.
Then I was like, oh, so this is the power of money. This is the privilege that comes with it. Yeah.
Wow, that's a long flight though. That's very nice.
Yeah. So Google was the best employer. They really invested in me. And the funny thing about Google, the best thing that was, I was working in sales. So I was working with a lot of businesses that advertise using Google's services. And through that experience, I met a lot of entrepreneurs that come from very humble beginning. And through a series of very smart investments and decisions, they were able to transform their lives. So that was also another source of like, hey, how do you leverage what you already have to build up a financial pool for yourself? Yeah.
Wow. So can you walk me through the story of how you ended up leaving Google?
Yeah. I didn't want to leave.
Right.
But as you know, right now, this 2025, the job market isn't the best right now. Especially in the tech industry, is going through sort of a contraction. And I saw some of the signs that I saw when I was working in finance in the tech industry, where they started to freeze hiring, they started to curb on business travel, on other expenses, and I knew, okay, things are not stable here. And eventually, I was laid off. If I wouldn't lay off, I wouldn't have pursued this path right now because it was just so prestigious and comfortable to be working for Google. And I'll continue to be making my high salary and aiming for my next promotion. But it was because I was laid off, it forces me to then relook at my finances and say like, hey, how desperate am I? And it was only after then that I calculated and I was like, hey, I actually, based on like how much I'm spending versus how much I'm investing and save, I actually have a very long runway. And then I was like, hey, maybe then I don't need to rush back into a job. Then I said, okay, I'll give myself 3 months. 3 months become 6 months. 6 months become 9 months. I was like, hey, I could really get used to this. And, financially, my investments are paying off. And that's where I started to finally allow myself to even say, hey, I'm financially free and I don't need to work if I don't want to. And even now when I say that, I feel guilty saying it because it's a privilege that a lot of people don't. But yeah, that's how I came across it.
Yeah. So when you look through your finances, what did you discover? I know that after looking through, you figured out that I'm financially free. I don't have to go back to work if I don't want to. Are you able to share like how much was in your accounts at that time?
Sure. So just to share with you some context, the very first paycheck that I got, the very first full paycheck, I gave it to my mom. The whole thing.
Wow.
Just as a symbolism of thank you for taking care of me. But the second paycheck onwards, I would take 20% and invest it in an index fund. And then over the years, I've been working for 14 years now. Over 14 years, my salary increased and my percentage I could also increase. So eventually at my last drawn salary, I was investing 50% on my take home pay.
Wow.
So from 20 to 50. If you think about it, 50% is a huge amount. Right. That means that you have very little left. A lot of people think that you have very little left. But because I was very fortunate to improve my career as well, my take-home pay also grew. So whatever that's remaining, that half is sufficient. It's still sufficient for me to go traveling, to rent my own apartment, to eat out, and to have all the nice perks and luxuries in life. But because of that 20 and 50%, I didn't actually saw the amount, but then once I got laid off, then I actually went in and took an amount, and it was 7 figures already. It was one something million. And I was like, whoa, where did all this money come from? Because all this time, it's not just you were saving, the investments were growing as well.
Right.
So if you think about it, there are a few things that were in my favor. One, my salary was increasing. So 20% of an increased salary would already grow by itself. Next, I increased the 20% to eventually 50%. So the input is growing. And also, lastly, I was investing it. So it also grew. So this is why I'm really fascinated by this concept of investment and compounding, because it doesn't seem like a lot initially, but if you give it time and you put in the right foundation, it actually grows for you at the later part of your career.
I have so many questions, but first of all, when did you start investing? How old were you?
I was 21, probably 21. Okay. Yes.
But it wasn't until you joined Google that you started
really ramped it up. Yes.
Okay, interesting. So how old were you then?
I joined Google at 28.
Okay, I see. And then, so you mentioned that your pay increased substantially, right? Are you able to share, like, when you first joined Google, how much were you getting paid?
My base in Google when I first joined was about 80,000. And when I left, it was close to 250,000 a year. So it went from 4x. Right. And that's excluding things like bonuses, commission, equity that the company will pay as well.
Wow. And that's over the span of 8 years, you 4x your income.
Yes. Wow. But then my lifestyle, I didn't 4x it. So this is also another very important part. I saw my friends who are dentists, doctors, lawyers, their per hourly rate is massive, $500 to $1,000 per hourly, but their lifestyle has inflated as well. So in finance terms, it's called lifestyle inflation. They started to buy bigger cars, they have bigger house, they have a bigger mortgage than they can handle. So I didn't really do that, and I put everything into into my investments, and yeah, that's how it grew. So
what did your lifestyle look like? Like, what kind of apartment or what kind of flat were you living in and everything?
Just a one-bedroom before that, coming in Singapore, before I was dating and before I proposed to my then girlfriend, it's very common for us to still live with our parents.
Right.
Right. So therefore, that is another advantage from people in Singapore, which is that you don't have the need to rent if you don't have to. Like, I think most people, not everyone, but most people have that option of still staying with their family.
Yeah, I see. So you were living at home until you basically got married?
Yes.
And then after you got married, you didn't have like a massive lifestyle creep?
Yeah. Lifestyle creep. Yes, that's the word. We rented a place, and but even then, we chose somewhere that is a little bit further from the city, so the rent is a bit more reasonable. And my colleagues, I still remember, they would say like, why are you staying so far? How long does it take you to commute? And I said like 45 minutes. And they're like, oh, that's too long, man. You should stay here. It's only 15 minutes to the office. And I was like, yeah, but that 30 minutes doesn't justify me spending that much when I know that if I invest it over years, it could actually grow and help me in the future.
Wow. Do you remember what percentage of your take-home salary you were spending on your necessities at the time?
Probably 20%.
Wow, that's very low.
Yeah. But people could call, my friends will call me frugal. But when you think of someone who is frugal, you think of someone who is like not enjoying life, who is like skimp and saving. But no, I actually, so for me, like I really do enjoy snowboarding. So every year I go to Japan and we ball out. We get our own like villa, what do you call it, ski in, ski out kind of place. It's fancy and everything. Fireplace and everything. We really do enjoy, and I really do. But on the daily basis, this is something I've noticed. On the daily basis, if you are able to control your expenses, so it is not the big holidays that take away all your expenses. It's the small little things, like, hey, instead of eating out all the time, could you cook? Right. Instead of taking the taxi or Uber or Grab all the time, could you take the train? These are the things that actually make a difference.
Yeah, definitely. So when you were let go from Google, how did you know that you're financially free? Like, what constitutes that?
So there's this thing in finance called the 4% rule, which means that whatever savings or the amount that you have saved, if you were to withdraw 4% of it, and if that 4% is sufficient for you to live on, you know that you are set, because the investment itself will continue to grow at a rate higher than 4%. So anytime you withdraw 4% of it, so my portfolio grew to about 2 million. So 4% is about $8,000 a month, I guess. My math, you need to do it.
I'll do the math. But I think when I looked into it, 2 million, 4% was like 80,000 a year.
Yes,
or something.
80,000 a year. So that's about like 8,000 or 6,000 a month.
Right.
On 6,000 a month in Singapore, you can actually live a comfortable life.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, most people households don't even make 6,000 a month, and yet they're able to raise 2 kids, send them to school, and go for holidays. So it's doable. I'm not living a flashy life.
Right.
And this was also the other thing. So there's the qualitative part where you look at your numbers and you think that is enough. But the qualitative side is you have a conversation. I have a conversation with my wife and say like, hey, is this the life that we want? Are we happy right now? Or do we need the bigger things? Do we need a car? She said, hey, we don't need a car. Do we need a bigger place? We don't really need a bigger place. We're happy with this place. In fact, we can stay further away now because we are far away from the office. We don't need to go to the office. So things like that really do make a difference.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, also I'm curious, do you feel like when you look at your life today, would you ever go back to corporate?
Oh, that's a question that my previous employers, my manager was just asking me the other day. Officially, no, but you never say never. But the difference now is that once you have a financial stability or independence, you choose to go back to work and you choose the job you want. You know how liberating that is? Because back then when I had to work, it was never about the job scope. You can pretend, you can tell people, oh, I'm really excited about this new job, it's doing A, B, C, D, but really it's the paycheck, because that's what sustains you.
Right.
But now that doesn't matter, then the A, B, C, D matters. Then you can really focus like, is this job matters to me? But then I'm just starting to be a house husband and I'm realizing how fun is this. So I would like to continue keeping it that way. And then I started my YouTube channel, similar to you. I'm starting, and I'm having a lot of fun. You know how sometimes people would say, I don't know if in the US they would say that's like, oh, when I hit 60 and I retire, I'm going to open up a cafe, or I'm going to like do their passion project, whatever their passion is. I'm going to teach windsurfing or something like that. I now have the opportunity to do it instead of my 60s in my late 30s. So whatever I do now, even if it's not profitable, it is my passion project. So even if I don't make a single dime of it, I'm really happy. And that to me is what money is supposed to do. It's supposed to enrich your life. And that's how I see it now.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit about investing. Any advice you have? And also, I'm curious, what were you investing in to grow your portfolio to that size?
Cool. The first advice I would give is just start now. Just start now. Now. It doesn't matter what investment you pick. Of course, it matters in the long run. But for people who have not invested, it is better to invest in something rather than nothing. The problem with investing, at least my own observation, is that people are so intimidated by it or so overwhelmed by it that they defer it, thinking that I'll figure it out the next time, and it never comes. So at least get started now, then go read up and find out what really works best for you. In my case, I came from the finance industry. I started working there. And because of that, I observed when I was there, I had to work with customers who invest their money. And I observed 2 types of customers, basically. There's the young, flashy customers who would invest a lot and chase after all the hot stocks right now. Like right now, it will be all the meme stocks and crypto and everything, versus the old patient one. And they're boring as hell. They will just keep buying the same thing. And every time we try to upsell them and get them to do something, they're like, nope. Thank you, but no thanks. And every year I saw the first group lose money and have to keep pumping in more money into their bank account. And I saw the second group grow their money. So I said, hey, these people must be onto something. And usually it is low-cost index funds. So that's the first thing I think, get started. And if you don't know where to begin, just start with low cost index funds. The second thing I would that really helped me was betting on America. Betting on America, meaning to say that America is the ultimate place to, for better or worse, obsess about wealth. Like everybody there goes to America to make money. So if you have a country that is so pro-business and pro-wealth, if you have a way to invest in it, you will make money off that country. So for me, my low-cost index funds were all US companies. So the S&P 500, which is the bucket of 500 companies. So that was my biggest betting on the US. And that I actually got from Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett, when someone, I remember a famous interview when they asked him like, hey, would you bet against the US? Or like, at that time, Japan was growing very, very fast, or China was growing very fast. He said, no, I will always bet on America because America is innovation first and America is capitalism first. So that was my way of getting a piece of capitalism, American capitalism.
American capitalism is so funny. So you were invested heavily into the S&P 500?
Yes.
Okay.
No property. Like people in Singapore obsess over property. But
why not?
Because Singapore is a small space. So the pros of Singapore, in my analysis, Singapore is a small space, a small country. So property is very lucrative because there's very limited of it. Right. But because Singapore is also a very highly regulated market, there's a lot of regulation. So it was just too complicated for me. I decided to just buy the S&P 500 and thankfully it keeps growing. So
how much of your portfolio was in the S&P 500? Right
now, I would say 50%.
Wow. So what's the rest invested in?
The rest is in Google stock when I was working there, and some kind of government bonds. So I try to balance it out.
Yeah. And then since you've been laid off at Google, have you actually been withdrawing money from your portfolio?
No, I actually don't need to.
Wow. So where's your income come from, your active income?
So I teach part-time as a lecturer. So that pays me a few $1,000s. I do consulting right now. So the cool thing is when I got laid off by Google, a lot of my old customers, they really enjoyed working with me. So they reach out to me with side projects or like part-time projects. So I consult with them as well. And my YouTube is also starting to generate views and get money in. So hopefully after this video,
I'm going to link it down below.
Hopefully after this video, your channel gets monetized too. So there are multiple little drips of money that comes in. It's able to sustain me for now.
Wow. So you're growing on all fronts though. Yeah.
Yes, everything is growing. Like my fixed income, my government bonds, they pay me a coupon every 6 months as well. So that's good enough for me to pay the rent, pay the groceries.
Yeah. Are you able to share what your biggest source of income is currently?
Currently, right now, it would be the dividends that my fixed income, my government bonds actually give me. So I have close to $1 million in government bonds. I know your viewers may be triggered by it. Like, why do you put so much in fixed income as opposed to stocks? Because I'm relatively still young. I still could take more risk, but I just want to balance things out. So $1 million, and if they're paying me about 4%, so that's 40,000 a year of dividends of coupons.
That's just like free money.
Free money, and the good thing about being here in Singapore, sorry for you being in the US, is that all of these are tax free.
Wow! So you just get 40,000 tax free.
Our version of IRS doesn't touch it at all. It goes straight to your bank account. And and this is something I've learned as well, where when you work in Singapore or even the US, your income is taxed at income tax. But here in Singapore, and this is the reason why so many rich people come here, because capital gains tax is 0.
Right.
Yeah. So I was thinking that growing up, back to my earlier point, like if all the rich people are coming here to use this benefit, why don't I use that benefit? Why don't I use that benefit? So I decided to. And that's why it's a huge amount.
Yeah, and I'm quite new to Singapore. I moved here a year ago, and I learned that recently that there's no capital gains tax here.
Yes.
Is that for everyone, or do you have to be a PR? Do you have to?
It's for everyone that's here. So if you are a French citizen and you come here to work, and you open up a brokerage account here in Singapore, um, you don't need to pay Singapore government any tax on. So if you open up a brokerage account and you buy one stock of Apple, and then tomorrow it doubles in price, whatever that you get to keep. The only thing is if you're an American citizen, then you are taxed globally. You are taxed globally.
You are.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's the tough part. Because I work in Google, most of my colleagues are American. They're like, no matter where I go, they'll tax me anyway. So they decided to keep their money in the US.
Yeah. I'm an American citizen as well. I've been in Singapore for about a year, and I also learned recently that I'm taxed in Singapore and I'm taxed in America, which is really unfortunate.
Yes. Yeah, I feel for you. So the funny thing is, earlier I told you, right, I had the opportunity to work in the US in San Francisco for 3 months. And then after 3 months, they said, hey, would you like to stay here or not? And then it's not because I was staying in downtown that I said no, but it was because of the tax. Because I did my own calculation. The US was able to pay me higher, and because they were paying me in US dollar, it would be even more. But after tax, because of Singapore tax and the US tax, I actually would have to take a pay. It would essentially mean taking a pay cut.
Wow, really?
Yes, which is so strange because in the past you would say that, hey, you have an opportunity to go to US. People would just take it because it changes your life, right? Your career trajectory. You're closer to the headquarters. You're closer to the hub and everything. But now because of how taxation, and I think people are more familiar with taxes, they see that, hey, taxes actually is a big consideration.
Wow. So even if you convert the currency, you would still save money by working in Singapore?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, but again, I speak on coming from a position of privilege because I was already making high income in Singapore.
Right.
So if you take high income in Singapore versus high income in the US, you would just take home less in the US just because the tax rate is higher there.
Yeah, I didn't know that. It's just Americans.
Yeah. It's so I make this joke. I don't know if we're gonna get canceled for that, but like Americans like go everywhere and they pay taxes on their worldwide income, but yet the government's still broke. So
we're still trillions in debt.
Yeah. So it's like so it's tough.
Crazy. Yeah, the government.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's another story. But,
but what I've learned from Americans is that's why a lot of them are entrepreneurs. That's why there's so many businesses and entrepreneurs in America, because your income that you generate from your business is taxed at a far lower rate than if you were an employee.
Yeah. If you own a business or if you have a registered business in the US, I believe you can write off a lot of business expenses and then save a lot of money on taxes. Yeah, it's interesting. So now that you are a free man, what's your opinion on corporate life?
I believe that, looking back, corporate life, at least here in Singapore, corporate life is not only a way of living, which is to earn your income, it is a form of identity. Looking back, I realized that if I just see corporate life, I would perhaps have a better relationship with it, which is that you work to get money, to get rich, to be financially free. Then you get to do what you want, as opposed to expecting too much from an employer. Right? Sometimes we expect our employer to give us meaning, to give us purpose, to give us balance in life. But I realize some of this, you got to earn it yourself. And therefore, my relationship with corporate life is you're there to work, to earn your keep. You shouldn't expect stability, because companies these days are very competitive. They may just disappear the next day. You can't expect your loyalty to be rewarded as well. So you need to make the best out of it by increasing your income, increasing your value, and then taking that, invest, and then build your own life. So that's how I see corporate life, and that's what I tell my students now.
Yeah. Also, what do you teach at? You teach at, and are you able to disclose?
Yes, I teach at the university here. It's National University of Singapore. It's one of the best business school here in Asia, and I teach digital marketing. And that is also another thing that helped me with my finances. So I had my active job, my main job at Google, which is marketing and digital, and I was leveraging that brand and the knowledge that I got there to find a job that is related. So when I go to the university and I pitch myself and I say, hey, I work for Google, would you want me to teach your students? They immediately say yes. Right? My interview was a breeze.
Wow.
because I came with all the industry knowledge. So this is an advice that like one way to double your income or to multiply your income is to look at what you're already good at and apply it in another domain.
Mm. You mean skill sets or like knowledge?
Anything,
Yeah.
whatever assets you have. So do like an example I'll think of is like, say you are air steward, your airline crew, right? You travel a lot, so you already know where to go, right? So the company is already sending you to travel. So then if you become a travel vlogger on your days off in those countries and say like, hey, these are the tourist traps, these are the cool places to go to, because you keep flying to the same cities, that becomes your secondary income. For someone who doesn't fly that often, to do that, they will need to pay for the flights and everything. But so leverage whatever assets you have to find and create a secondary income for yourself.
I feel like that's really great advice. And I've heard that before, just to, if you want to build a business or if you want to do something of your own, just to look at what you already have and build on top of that.
Yes, as opposed to like, going to take a course.
Yeah, restarting
and everything. You can't compete with people who are already in that industry because you're brand new.
Right.
But whatever that you already have, you could be a consultant, you could be an advisor, you could be running a side business related to what you're already at. That usually brings you to a higher payday faster, as opposed to starting brand new.
Yeah, I love that. So speaking of advice, what are some of your, do you have any key money principles or key investing principles that you can share with me?
Coming from the corporate life. So my entire YouTube channel, I try to advocate that people in the corporate life can be financially free. Because the popular narrative is that anyone who's financially free is either a business owner who struck it big, or they won the lottery, or they come from a rich family. Right? So very few.
Or like a retiree.
Yeah, or retiree. But by then you're 60 or 70. You're in a home. You can't enjoy your life already. It'll be too late to retire. So I really believe that people, and I've done it myself, that working in a corporate life, you can be financially free. You don't need to be living paycheck to paycheck. You don't need to be just working for the sake of paying your bills. So how do you do it? The first principle is to actively improve your active income. A lot of people don't actually do that. So they clock in, they clock out, they don't increase their skills, they don't network, they don't interview frequently to see what opportunities there are out there. So be very active in your active income. Then for your passive income, which is your investment, be extremely passive. As the name suggests, that's my second principle. But you notice that most people do it the opposite way.
Yeah.
Right? They would buy some property, rental property, and they're always thinking, what should I do with my rental property? Should I buy this? Should I add this or should I that? But on their day job, they hate their day job. They're miserable at it. So active job, your active income, you have to be active. Passive income, be passive. If you go counter it, then of course the results are going to be detrimental to you.
Interesting.
And you notice it everywhere.
Yeah.
We do it everywhere.
That's so fascinating. I've never heard it put that way, but that makes so much sense. And that's so true. I always see people just kind of passive in their day jobs, like slowly trying to make more money and maybe getting frustrated in the process, and then trying to be so active with their investments that they're being impulsive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And there are research that shows that the more impulsive you are and the more buy and sell that you do, you actually lose money then, as opposed to someone who just put the money there and let it grow.
Yeah.
Right. So that's so that's my advice. And here you see that people who are working, they go back home on time, and at night they're on their computer looking at what stocks to buy or what coin to buy and everything, right? As opposed to like focus on your day job, increase your income, and then take the increased income that you earn, park it in a good passive managed low cost index fund, and that's good enough.
Set it and forget it.
Yes, set it and forget it, which is what happened to me. I forgot about it. I mean, I didn't actively look at it. It was only after I laid off, then I look at my finances. That okay, wow, over the years, because of my past, my previous self that I thank every day, my current self is able to enjoy this portfolio right now.
Yeah, it's amazing. So let's say you're talking to someone on the other side of the screen. who is slogging it out day by day at their day job. They're unhappy. What advice do you have for that person who might feel stuck?
That's the toughest point. That is the toughest point, because that person who is stuck, that person is probably, I mean, if you're stuck and you're unhappy, you wouldn't want to do it. But there's a reason why the person is doing it. It's usually finances.
Mm-hmm.
They're paying, they have bills to pay and everything. So that is the toughest position. So my advice to that is that you need to find whatever ways you have to find a window of period in your time. No matter how tired you are, no matter how busy you are, to find just a window period of time. And that window of period of time, instead of just like resting or having a beer, which you are fully entitled to because you're really tired,
Right.
instead of doing that, invest a little bit of time to acquire a skill that can pay you more than your current job. So what I'm saying, long story, is to find some time in the treacherous, miserable, long working hours of your day, find a little bit of time to invest in yourself and find a skill set, and then that sets a motion for you to pivot.
Right.
If not, you're perpetually in that cycle.
Yeah.
So be it like find a time to, instead of going out to eat, maybe meal prep so that you don't need to cook, and then that gives you a little bit of time. Instead of watching Netflix for 3 hours, maybe watch for 2 and have an hour and invest in yourself. That's what I would suggest. That goes for your active income. For your passive income, same thing. Whatever amount of money you have, if you can ilk out just a little bit to start investing, you can start investing now.
So you could start investing by spending less, like trying to save as much.
Yes. Like if you, hopefully this person who is stuck, there is some things that this person can cut back. So like instead of watching Netflix, they can just watch free-to-air TV or something like that. I know that's very difficult because no one watches free-to-air TV these days, but something that you can like save $20, $30 a month, and you can start investing.
Yeah. The last thing I wanted to chat with you about is your recent move to Thailand. You just moved there, you said a month ago?
Yes, I'm flying off there tonight. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I'm so tired.
What a global life. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God, yes.
Thanks for coming. I snagged you the one day you were in Singapore.
Yes. So the funny thing is I'm doing this because of your videos that you did in CNBC, where you covered all these people who are remote workers, right? If you can like put a thumbnail of all those videos there. Yeah, I saw all those videos. It's like, hey, all these Americans that are living in Bali, living in Thailand, and they look so much happier. I was like, hey, these Americans spend so much money to fly halfway around the world to these countries that is just so near to me. Right. So again, like where you're at, you actually have a lot of resources. Like in Singapore, you are so close to these places that people spend thousands of dollars just to come here for vacations, and you can go there just like that. So I now live in Thailand, and I come to Singapore once a week to work, teaching in my university. The crazy part is that whatever the university pays me and my consulting that I do with my customers that are based here in Singapore, they pay me in Sing dollars, and whatever I earn here is able to pay off my rent, my flights, my groceries, my meals out in very nice restaurants in Thailand, and general expenses.
Wow. So it pays for essentially all your necessities in your entire life, like these 2 things that you do. Yes,
and I work here for 3 hours a week.
Wow.
Yeah. So
and you have to fly here too.
Yes. So the flight and everything. But to me, it's tiring. I get it. But to me, because now I no longer have a full-time job, that flight is like a holiday. It's like, who gets to say that, oh, I go to Bangkok every weekend, or I go to Singapore every week? Like to me, that's just flying. And then I get to meet people like you. I do a little bit of errands. I meet a few people, I get some stuff, and then I'm back to Thailand.
Wow, that's fun. That sounds like a lot of fun. What's your life been like there?
Oh, it's beautiful, understand? It's just beautiful. Thailand actually grows a lot of its own food.
Right.
And Thai food is already so popular. So like I'm eating a new cuisine, I'm meeting new people, I'm trying to pick up a different language now. It's just like me going back to school in some sense. You're now in a new environment, and I'm really excited.
Yeah. Are you there for the long term?
I hope so. Eventually, I do want to come back to Singapore if and when I can afford a house here. I know it's crazy for me to just brag to you of my portfolio, but it's,
I mean, you could purchase a house here, but it
but then everything will be in the house. That's the thing, right? That's the trade-off that we all have to do, right? Like if you put everything in a house, yes, your portfolio looks nice on paper because you have a very valuable house, but everything is tied to it as well.
Right.
Yeah. So for me, that's not what I'm looking for right now.
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, you're truly a testament that anyone can do this, right? Like, obviously, you worked very hard in your career to get to where you were, to be making the money you were, but I mean, it's simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. You know, you don't have to be this
Yes.
rich person. It doesn't have to be in retirement. You can start working towards financial freedom today. Just save a little bit extra money, try your best to make a little bit more money, and then invest it.
Yeah. It's not easy, but it's simple.
Right.
Right? It's not easy because to climb the corporate ladder, to make more money, to start investing, you got to read up. It's not easy, but it's simple.
Yeah.
But then sometimes we think that, you know, we need to complicate things, right? It's,
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Shao. My first ever interview on this channel.
Yes,
really
I'm very excited to see this video. Everyone, please support her.
Yes.
What she does is very, very important with her with her
you.
stuff with CNBC and now her channel. So I wish you all the best.
Same with Shao. If you want to learn more, his channel is 9 to 5 Millionaire Mindset. I'll link it down below and go check out his video after this. But yeah, Shao has a flight to catch, so we're going to wrap it up.
Yes.
But yeah, we'll catch you guys next time.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.